and we are now going to call the Coastal DC meeting to order. I'd like to ask Scott Tankersley to lead us in prayer.
Bow your heads. Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful morning you've brought us. We ask that you will help us be mindful today as we discuss matters of the city and help us to be mindful of being good stewards of the money of the city of San Angelo and the citizens of the city of San Angelo. I ask that you be with those in harm's way and overseas and bring them home to their families and safe as soon as possible. And Lord, I ask that you will help us to be mindful of what we can do for you. We ask these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Now we move on to opening up for public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, beginning by stating their name and limiting remarks to less than 3 minutes. Board members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The board takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. Any public comment? Okay, there being none, we'll now close public comment and move on to the consent agenda. We'd like to move to approve the consent agenda with one change, change being on the presence of board members. We're scratching Richard Crisp and adding David Cummings. So if I can get approval on the consent agenda with that change.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
No nays. All right, now we're moving on to the regular agenda. We'd like to get an update regarding Porch to Plains congressional trip to Washington, D.C., held on April 24th to the 28th. Presentation by City Council Single-Member District Lane Carter.
Thank y'all for letting me come and present this.
Morning.
And morning. Had the pleasure of going up to Washington, D.C. and Charlotte's Place back in April. Give a little update on how we approach the legislators on Porch to Plains, and can give a little background exactly what Porch to Plains is. Porch to Plains is the initiative. It's a coalition between 9 states and Alberta, Canada, ranging from Laredo all the way up. It's made up of elected officials, city employees, of the such. And the goal is to upgrade the entire Porch to Plains corridor to a 4-lane divided highway to provide for more safe travel and transportation of goods all the way up from our inland ports. As you can see, you've got in the blue the Porch to Plains trade corridor, Heartland Expressway in the red, and the Theodore Expressway in the green. It makes up for the whole coalition. This is a federally designated high priority corridor. So the way that we approached the legislators, kind of give them an update of how we stand. And these bullet points, we urged Congress to increase the infrastructure investment only if rural America gets its fair share, along with identifying specific projects for funding to urge Congress to include Porch to Plains Alliance in those identified projects. We also urged Congress to fix the Highway Trust Fund for a way to fund this, because it's going to cost extreme amount of money. And we urge Congress to fix NAFTA, not to end it. While we were up there, on all the TVs around the House and the Senate buildings, they had it on a news channel, and NAFTA was the key discussion. They were going through those talks, and it was kind of up in the air exactly at that point what was going to be the final outcome of this. So, national significance, it's multi-state congressionally designated. And as you can see, why it is of high priority. I'll go to those slides here in a minute. We have 55% of it completed, 45% is remaining. We have over $2 billion invested in this already. What's left to do is the remaining existing 2 lanes. All the way down to San Angelo, you can see you have a 4-lane. And if it's going to extend down to Laredo, that's a pretty short segment for if you look at the overall segment of this whole corridor. So we're kind of focusing on that part of getting that designated right now, because that's the easiest part. If we get that designated, then we can do so much more. If that whole stretch of Texas can be designated 4-lane or greater. This is why it's such a high priority. You have wind, you have oil, gas, all the shells right here in the middle of the heartland of the United States, along with agriculture. So right now, you have I-35 stretching all the way up. And one of the goals of Ports to Plains is to alleviate the traffic off of 35, get it onto what would be I-27. 27 now is designated and completed between Amarillo and Lubbock. Key impacts would be international trade, job and economic development growth, and the big benefit of doing this designation for I-27 all the way up to Alberta, Canada, is you can do this for the fraction of the cost of just the gaining the right-of-ways of I-35 up through Dallas. So to complete that entire corridor is just that little bit of money. So it's great. I'm excited. The legislators pretty much sound on board. Some loopholes that we have to jump through is getting statewide. Midland is kind of not wanting to designate south of I-20. They're more concerned of farm to market and county roads of getting ran over by the oil traffic and getting those roads back into better condition. This is why we need this to be federally designated. And as you can see, this last map up through the panhandle of Oklahoma, if you give the states the money to do what they see fit with it, Oklahoma is going to be putting their money more towards OK City and Tulsa. That's not going to benefit trade at all, because you have Boise City, Oklahoma, where you have wind turbine blades going through the center of downtown and knocking out wiring and lights going through straight through around the courthouse. So designated this as a federal corridor, getting every single one of these members of Senate and the House on board is the priority right now. As of Texas right now, most of them are on board. If we can work with Midland to get them to maybe say if we co-designate I-14, if it's going to come through up to 158, that would kind of push things through and get them more along the lines of saying, okay, let's do this. If we get Texas, which you can see from Texas on Laredo to the Panhandle, that's almost half of the entire corridor. So that's a significant amount of trade right there. So right now you have the East Coast and the West Coast with interstates, and this would create a ladder system to get your ag, your wind, your oil, your gas dispersed to the urban areas and where the high sales prices are. So that's it in a nutshell. One of the questions that we got, we mostly saw legislative assistance. Conway came in, he was on his way to go vote, so we saw him, but just got to shake his hand. And Jody Arrington from the Abilene area, we got to meet with him. They're on board, they're excited. So working through on the congressional level, at that time, health care bill was a high priority, so getting that off the table was first. We now have a president that is wanting infrastructure as a high priority. So this is a key time for us to hit this legislation up and this the presidency. Also, the tax bill, tax reform, that's going to be a key way to fund for this, because it's going to take millions and billions of dollars to create this all the way up through Alberta, Canada. Having Alberta was to show our government that they're willing to accept this. It helped out a tremendous amount. So getting those few things, healthcare, tax reform off, lowering the taxes, but maybe upping the gas tax to help pay for this is one key way to do it. So Take any questions?
Any questions or comments for Lane? All right. Appreciate everything you do for
Thank
us,
y'all.
representing us on Ports of Plains Lane. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate y'all. Thank
Yes,
y'all.
sir.
Thanks, Lane.
Now we're going to move on to regular agenda line item 5B, Airport Air Service Marketing and Recruitment Services Update. This presentation will be by Airport Director Lou Elgazabal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Luis Elgazabal, your airport director. Since I was here last, I believe October of last year, let me just give you an update from what we have then, but let me go back a little bit. Let's go to 2011. We started talking when we lost Continental in 2008. We started talking with several airlines. We've talked to 12 airlines. All of them have passed on our market. We started with traditional airlines like United, US Airways, Frontier. Then we moved to national airlines and regionals like SkyWest, Allegiant, Republic, Sun Country. Then we moved out of the box and into micro gauge airlines. RVR, Boutique, Rice, Texas Air Shuttle, and Texas Sky. Since I came to you last fall, we've been talking to Texas Sky, and Texas Sky passed on our market back in December of last year. We're grateful for the funds that you gave us to attract or seek additional, but we have not been able to seek any additional airlines. We lost our SCATSD grant, Small Community Air Service Development Grant, January 16th of this year. With what I read this morning from the president's budget, that program will not be funded anymore. So it'll be really difficult to apply and seek those funds again. And we lost $500,000 for air service development. Right now, we've brought this matter up to the Economic Development of the Chamber. We met with City Council last week, and Council has directed us to work with Lex Volo, our air service consultant, which you've met, Edward Shelsworth-White, and we're going to seek additional input from the community. We're starting a group that will meet. The first meeting will be June 8th, and we'll go from there to seek additional marketing service with American Airlines to enhance that service, and a marketing plan for the community so we can fly local. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I know Mr. Tankersley has been with us in some of those trips to SkyWest, so it's been difficult.
Concern that I have, and I don't know, this is probably not the right forum for this, but the number of flights that we have, that, with the loss of that fourth flight, I don't know what kind of problems that's going to cause, but I certainly hope we can figure out something to get that air service, get more air service or something. That's just my personal opinion.
That's one of the issues that has been brought up, and actually Councilman Lane Carter, has been very involved in it, and he's part of the committee, so that's something we're going to be looking at, talking to American.
Definitely. We've got a gem of an airport out there, and I want to see us use the heck out of that thing, and losing that one flight, man.
I share the same sentiment.
Any other questions or comments for Lou?
I just have a question about what the reasoning with American is for changing the flight schedule. It's they're not filling the planes? Is it the load factor, or is it that they have other high priority markets that they need to shift?
What
those
our
flights
consultant
to?
was able to formulate from just looking at data, one was the employment, so the traffic on that last flight. The American was only filling 35% of that aircraft, so they combined it between the 2 o'clock flight and the 6 o'clock flight. But we do not have a reason yet. We will be engaging American Airlines to try to get some reasoning, but just looking at the data is the economics.
That data, was that over 6 months, a year? I mean,
No, he just looked at the data, I
was the
believe
times?
for the past 3 months from DOT.
Just 3 months, and okay.
Well, I'm sure American Airlines has a lot more data. They don't make decisions lightly. But the data that he gathered.
Several of those, that late flight, and it's always been packed. Everybody's always trying to get home.
Coming home wasn't the issue, it was departing. But
Yeah.
yeah, they were only filling roughly 18 seats out of 50. But again, we will be engaging American Airlines to get an answer. They have not communicating the reasoning yet.
I have a question. Typically, when they remove a flight and you go through the process of reassessing if that flight's needed, how long of a turnaround time would that be for them to make that decision? Is it, is it 6 months? It possibly could come back, or is it where you have to really show the data to support that need is there, and they'll review it in a year? I mean, what's that time frame where?
I wish Edward was here, but talking to Edward, our consultant, he used to work for Southwest Airlines, and he said typically airlines look at 9 months prior, but usually 90 days is when they make the decision. But I cannot speculate. That's just what I've heard from Edward with his knowledge in airlines.
Any other questions for Lou? All right. Appreciate you. Thank you, sir. All right. Now we're moving on to line item 5C in the agenda, considering approving the 2017-2018 budget. This presentation is by Economic Development Director Roland Pena.
Morning, board members.
Morning.
Quick slide of current status of our sales tax revenues. I bring that forth every month so that you can see the tracking of those revenues. As you can tell, it seems to have stabilized the last 2-3 months, but we continue to monitor that. We have been in discussions about the budget since February, I believe, so we're pretty much done. To my knowledge, there was only 2 items that I'm bringing forth today. And so we did have a indication that our insurance is going to go up. This is the director and officer's liability insurance is going up, and so I've included that cost. And then staff services. Our staff services is at we're proposing 578,088. Here are some of the changes. You have this in your board packet. Our finance director has conducted their indirect cost study, and so they're doing this annually. So you'll see some new additional costs to staff services, but you'll also see some changes where some of the departments, the allocations for those departments have mainly decreased, but you'll see some increases in, for example, legal. We do keep legal busy. And then you'll see accounting. Legal went down, but accounting has gone up. Accounting plays a big role in what we do. Real estate, we're utilizing real estate more these days with the land sales and parcel sales, and then additional land that we're trying to utilize not only at the industrial park but outside in other parts of the city. Here are some of the other new services, minor, inform. So the difference between last year and this year's budget is the $64,411, and I will incorporate this into the new staff services contract. I'll bring that forth hopefully after City Council approves the budget, just to make sure that there are no changes. But we'll be bringing the staff services contract in the near future for your approval. Other than that, the other expected budget expenditures remain the same. So this is a total revenue that we've decided a few months back based on what we're seeing in terms of sales tax revenue. Then you see the allocation, 78% goes to ballot, and then the 28% to economic development. So we have a balanced budget. I will answer any questions that you may have.
Under the staff services, that information technology up $16,430, what's that for?
This is a, I know this is a indirect cost that is allocated back to the different departments. I think Tina can help better answer that question, but this is a result of the indirect cost study. We have never been charged for that before. They do provide services for their maintenance and help desk and troubleshooting our.
So it's not acquisition of new hardware or something like
No,
that?
no. This is actual work being done.
This indirect cost plan is conducted by a consultant. Excuse me. They meet extensively with divisions and departments to determine how many hours they are spending on development corporation projects. And through that, it's a really thick book that they produce for us, but they do extensive work to determine how much should be allocated to each of the different departments in the city. It's kind of like an overhead, if you will.
And then this is just our share of
Exactly.
whatever that sum is? Okay.
Yes.
How come we've never been charged for it before?
I
Or
think
is
it
this
might have
first-
just been overlooked as one of the divisions that serves the development corporation in the past.
So this charge is for, I guess, your IT guys to provide help to the staff?
That's correct.
Bob, stop calling them.
Reboot.
All right. I think we're good. Thank you, Tina.
Let me try to shed some light on this as well. So we had a cost allocations on the contract. This is a contract that we've inherited, and I think there's been minimal change with regard to those staff services, what those indirect costs from those different departments are.
Can we get a copy of that report or or that study that was done?
Yes, we can provide that to you. But the point is, we received these services. I think it was just merely an oversight, in my opinion. We just stayed with the same contract. Those services were being applied. They were providing services for us. Another good example is the CVCED that we've are going to inherit next year. So we have insurance that's provided for the business factory that CVCED provides for that insurance. We had accounting that's being provided for CVCED, and then obviously staff is providing services for that. It is a nonprofit entity, but I think for the most part, it's just the due diligence, being able to apply true numbers to those costs. The indirect cost study has never been done before. It was done last year and then again this year. So it's more reflective of the actual cost of those services.
Roland, on the staff services contract, what's the net, I don't have it right in front of me, the net difference of last year versus, or current year versus next year? It's down
64.
64,000, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for Roland? All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Dr. Cummings. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed. All right, moving on to agenda item 5D, consider appointing a Costa DC board representative to the I-14 Gulf Coast Strategic Highway Coalition, presented by Roland Pena.
So as we were aware, Tommy Hebert, our director, was elected to the San Angelo City Council, and that created a vacancy on the I-14 Gulf Coast Strategic Highway Coalition. Costa DC does have 3 representatives on that coalition or board. The requirements of that have been minimal. We attend the annual board meeting that happens around January. And then most recently, we attended the unveiling of the signage in Killeen about a month and a half ago. Current representatives, at least from last year's Tommy Hebert, myself, and Dwayne Morrison. Dwayne Morrison obviously was something that he was interested in, and so we asked the city for their designee, and we'll be asking for that in their next city council meeting to see who they'll want to appoint to I-14 from the city council. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions, and you do have the opportunity to, based on your agenda, to be able to designate someone and appoint someone at this board meeting.
So we need to fill that position, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Roland, when do we need to make that appointment by? Could we hold off until the whole board is here? We'd hate to make an appointment if,
I don't want to volunteer anybody, but,
yeah.
oh, by the way.
Well, and we might want to do that because they're not here, so it'd be their fault, so.
Just something to think about. So we will have a new director that will be filling Tommy Hebert's position. And so my understanding is that's going to be brought to City Council next month as well. So that would be the only position that we'll need filling. Just to remind you, on I-27, John Barrio
Serves on that.
serves as a advisory board member. So while Charlotte is the board member that can vote, that's allowed to vote and make a decision, John Barrio only serves as advisory on I-27. So he's already representing Costa DC on I-27. And then we're missing who? Todd Cole?
Missing Todd.
Okay.
Unless if you want to step up, big boy.
I wouldn't mind stepping up. I mean, if
Right.
Tommy's the one that served as president from the board on that, I'll be glad to serve if we want to go forth.
I nominate Edward Carrasco.
There's a second on that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, there you go.
All right, Edward. Good job, man.
Sure, I'm glad
Why
you volunteered for that.
table
Before I
it?
had to tell him he's going
Let's
to do
just
it.
move forward. All right, now moving on to regular agenda line item 5E, considering approving a resolution to establish the Business Factory Advisory Panel, also presented by Roland Pena.
So what you have before you is a resolution, and the one that follows would be very, very similar in fashion. This is to establish the Business Factory Advisory Panel. Last month, you approved the Business Factory Advisory Manual, Policy Manual. The resolution calls for 8 members, just like was stated in the policy manual. Minimum of 8 members, maximum of 9, with representatives from ASU, ASU SBDC, the College of Business. That would be a student. Costa DC, someone from the legal profession, a financial institution, CPA, and Business Factory graduate. And so that'll be a great combination. This is the slate that we bring before you, so you can approve the establishment of the advisory panel and this slate of members. So Dr. Clifton Jones, Dave Erickson, the student, we're waiting for that to be named. We can appoint it later. Juan Flores, our illustrious Juan Flores.
Illustrious.
Sam Allen, Ray Montgomery, Megan, yes.
Yes.
And pronounce the last one, Lisa. How do you pronounce the last one?
Zajuski.
Majeski.
She's a graduate of the Business Factory and
misspelled.
has been doing very well. So I think this is going to be a great, just a great panel.
You got Ray's name misspelled. It's W-R-E-Y.
Really?
Yeah.
Right? With
Just
that correction.
saying.
It's okay.
Ray, if you're watching, you're welcome.
That was provided to me, so.
So Juan, are you wanting to serve again?
Oh, I thought that I was already being voluntold.
It's a bit like you got
Guess we would
voluntold.
open it back
I
up
wasn't
to.
saying, I wasn't saying anything at that point. Scott, you mentioned you're interested.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, I will do it if you're not, but I mean, it's,
I nominate Scott Tankersley.
I second.
take it. Done.
All in favor?
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed.
There you go.
One change.
Right.
All right. Let's see here. Moving on to line item F, considering approving resolution to establish the Costa DC Chamber Standing Committee presented by Roland Pena.
This resolution is similar in fashion. It calls for 3 Costa DC board members, 2 representatives from the Chamber of Commerce to serve a 2-year term. And so we're asking for the approval of the resolution, the appointment of the following, Mr. Edward Carrasco, Mr. Juan Flores, and Mr. Scott Tankersley, Mr. Dan Koenig representing the Chamber, and Mr. C.J. Muniz. I think this reflects what you called for last month's board meeting.
Sure.
And so with that, I'll be open to answer any questions, and staff recommends approval.
How often is this committee going to meet, and what's the, what are the goals of this committee?
Let me go back to the resolution. So the resolution states that the committee will meet from time to time on issues that may arise concerning performance measures, approvals, or other matters requiring Costa DC and Chamber of Commerce collaboration. So it can meet as often as it wants to meet. See if there's anything else. Other than that, the only requirement is that we take minutes. No requirement for posting of the committee. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a partnership that we need to continue to develop.
This is a communication, opening lines of communication avenue? Okay.
Exactly.
Intention.
Dan, would you like to come up and say anything on behalf of the chamber?
Thank you, Roland. Dan Koenig, I'm president of the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. If you go back a couple of months, I think really the whole discussion started with we wanted the opportunity to present to you as Costa DC board members what we do day in and day out. And so I think this subcommittee was a derivative of that. I think I still would like the opportunity on your next agenda or sometime in the future to present a brief, 15, 20-minute overview of our services to the entire board, even if it's in this as a public setting versus a workshop. But I think this is a fabulous idea. I know Edward, just as an example, we sat down with Roland a couple weeks ago, and we went kind of line by line over some invoices for our services that we provide, and I thought it was just an extremely healthy process. And I know it opened Edward's eyes, as to what we do and what we provide and those kinds of things. So I just think this is a continuation of that benefit. So,
Any other questions from the board for either Roland or Dan?
Motion.
We need a motion. Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. All right. Now we're moving on to closed session, executive session under the provision of Government Code, Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirements that meetings be open under the following sections. Section 551.087, to discuss an offer of financial or other incentives to companies with whom the City of San Angelo Development Corporation is conducting economic development negotiations, and which the City of San Angelo Development Corporation seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in San Angelo. It is now 9:06, and we are heading to executive session. Out of executive session, no line items to be reported. We now motion to adjourn our meeting.
Motion. To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.